Hello, today's channeling session is going to be about, are we only three-dimensional beings? So, I'm asking this question because the channel I did yesterday was talking about how we are already fifth-dimensional, so I've already kind of answered the question, are we only third-dimensional beings? Well, in the channel yesterday it was saying that we're fifth-dimensional as well. So I'm just wondering, how far does this extrapolate? Are we like all dimensions? Are we just the third dimension and the fifth dimension? So I'd just like some more information on that. So that's what I'm going to ask. Are we only third-dimensional beings, or, if we would extend that question, are we multi-dimensional beings? So let's see what we have on that. Alrighty. Okay, let's go. Greetings and thank you for the question. Are you only a third-dimensional being? And we understand that the question is a curiosity about other dimensions, and if in these other dimensions you are present in some way. Do you occupy more than just the third dimension? We shall start by giving you the shortest answer, which is you are multidimensional. So you are not limited to the third dimension. So let us expand on this concept. There is only one thing, and you are an individuation of that one thing. So you are that one thing experiencing itself through the unique perspective which is you. As there is only one thing, then it follows that contained within this one thing are all of the dimensions. And as you are the one thing, then you also are found in all dimensions. So let's add some detail to this concept. Your purpose is to realize, and the realization process is the discovery that you are the one. You are the unique perspective of this one thing. Prior to existence, this one thing was present, but only as a concept. Because when there is only one thing, there is no thing which is not the one thing. And as such, there is no capacity for contrast, for differentiation, and therefore for experience. Yearning to know itself experientially, this one thing individuated itself infinitum. So now there was one thing which was not another thing, which is not another thing, and so on. So this one thing, through the illusion of more than one, through the illusion of separation, now had the capacity to perceive itself from unique perspectives, which were not the same perspective within this illusory matrix, which facilitated experience. So now this one thing, through its many individuations, had the capacity to experience itself and therefore know itself through experience, to fulfill its purpose, to answer its yearning, to know itself not only conceptually, but now also experientially. As you are an individuation of the One, then you also are the One. And so the One's purpose is your purpose, because you are this one thing. So your purpose is also to know thyself. You are having the physical experience so that you can go through this process of increasing realization in the discovery that you are ultimately the one thing. And so this self-realization process is the ongoing discovery of your infinity, because you are an infinite being. As an individuation of the One, you are the One, just as your finger is you. It is part of the one thing. As the One is an infinite being, and you are the One, then you also are an infinite being. And your process of self-realization is to increasingly become realized of your infinity. Within a dimensional realm, you have in front of you a portion of the One's infinity. And as you go through this process of self-discovery, self-realization, you expand into this portion of the infinity which is available to you as potential within the dimension that you're in. As this transition continues from a place of less realization to greater realization, what is occurring is the field of potential which is available to you within that dimensional state is being potentiated. It is being utilized. It is being exploited. And so you become a larger being, a more expanded being, a more realized being. And this expansion gathers up the potential that lay ahead of you within the dimension that you're in, until eventually, for you to continue this expansion, to further realize yourself as the Infinite One, you need access to more of the infinity of the One. And this is when you transition into a higher dimensional state, or into a higher vibratory state, where you again have laid out in front of you access to an even greater portion of the infinity of the One. And then once you are in this dimensional state where you have transitioned, because you have used up the potential of the dimensional realm you're in, and so there is no more capacity to expand because all of the potential has been potentiated, and you transition into the next dimensional state, then this process will continue, and you will expand further and further as you increasingly awaken and potentiate more of the infinity, become familiar with the more of the infinity, to identify with more of the infinity, to realize that you are the infinity, until you will reach a similar place as you have done in the third dimension, as humanity reaches the very limits of the expansion into the third dimension and now must transition to the next dimensional state such that it can continue to become more realized of the infinity which it is. You will, at this time, at the end of the next dimensional state which lay ahead, be again ready to transition to the next dimensional state, so that you have more access to the infinity which lay ahead, which is you, yet unrealized. And in this next dimensional state, the same shall occur. Over a very long period, you will continue to expand in your awareness, continue to become more realized as the infinity, which is becoming more realized that you are the one. Until it is yet time again to transition to more access to the infinity of the one, so that you can continue to realize that you are the one, to know yourself to yet a greater degree, to experience yourself as more and more as the infinite one, and so on and so on and so on, until eventually, at the ultimate completion, you have realized yourself in every dimensional realm. You have expanded into the infinity. In all ways it is available to you. And you have become fully realized that you are the one. And then this is when the one knows itself to completion through you. Because your individuation has become consumed by the realization that you are not separate from the one, that you are not an individuation of the one, but you are in fact the one. So, this expansion into the infinity, into the increasing realization that you are the one, is an expansion into yourself. It is a increasing realization that it is all you, that there is nothing which is not you, because you are the one. And so as humanity gets ready to transcend the third dimension and to become realized and awakened as fifth dimensional beings, it is an expansion into self. It is an expansion into something which is already there, which is you. Because you are every dimension. Because you are the one. You are multidimensional. And it is not a process of growing into these dimensional realms, but a process of remembering, a process of discovering that you are all of it, that you are the one. As you go through this process of expanding into yourself, becoming more and more realized of who you are, the frontier of this expansion is the focal point of your consciousness. It is the exploratory nature of all sentience, to discover, to become more, to investigate and see what else there is. And so while you are the third dimensional being, your frontier the focal point of your consciousness is three-dimensional. So although you are a multi-dimensional being, your awareness of that is calibrated to the focal point of your consciousness. And as the focal point of your consciousness is primarily in the 3D, then this is how you self-perceive. However, what is occurring now in the human field is that there is becoming an increasing awareness of the extra dimensionality. There is a realization that you, the individual, are not limited to the mind, the body, the personality. That this finite, limited thing that you see in the mirror is not accurately representative of who you truly are. Because there is a burgeoning awakening that there is more than just what can be seen in the mirror. And this burgeoning awareness is the stretching into the fifth dimension while still a third dimensional being, while still primarily within the three-dimensional matrix. So you are multidimensional, and you are in all dimensions simultaneously, because it is all you. However, your awareness, the focal point of your consciousness, is not in all of these dimensions. It is, at this time, limited to your third dimensionality, and increasingly so, your fifth dimensionality, as this threshold has already begun to be crossed, expanding in to a fifth dimensional awareness. And as this transition deepens and you become more fifth dimensional in nature, because you are becoming more realized as fifth dimensional, you're expanding increasingly into your fifth dimensionality, into your awareness of your infinity. And this will bring about a reduction in your third dimensionality, and the physical body will become less physicalized. It will become less dense. It will become more energetic. It will become more reflective of an infinite being, and less stunted in the limited misconceptualization of self as the finite, temporary being. And so what is occurring now is a movement away from density, a movement away from physicality, and a movement towards a greater realization of your infinity. All of the human field make up the humanity being. All sentience in the cosmos, all consciousness in existence is a crucible of infinite consciousnesses. Everything is an aggregation, a conglomeration of infinite consciousness. The One is the ultimate conglomeration, the ultimate aggregation. It is the crucible for infinite consciousnesses. And embedded into existence is fractality. And so you also are a crucible for infinite consciousnesses. Let us explain. You are comprised of trillions of cells. Each of those cells is an individual consciousness. And each of these cells are comprised of trillions of atoms. Each of these atoms is an individual consciousness. These atoms have subatomic particles. Each of these subatomic particles is an individual consciousness. These subatomic particles, as is being discovered, are infinitely divisible. And each of these divisions is an individual consciousness, which can be divided into individual consciousnesses, which can be divided into individual consciousnesses, which can be divided into individual consciousnesses. Infinitum. So, regardless of where on this scale you put your focus, whatever level of consciousness you are focused on, it is a crucible for infinite consciousnesses. This is the magnificence of the design, that you are very much a reflection of the One. You are a crucible of infinite consciousnesses, just as the One is. And so, when extrapolating in the opposite direction, you are an individuation, like a cell in your body is, of a larger organism, which is like a cell in the body of a larger organism, which is in the cell of the body of a larger organism. So you are a being containing trillions of cells. Each of those cells having a consciousness. And all of those consciousnesses are contained within the consciousness of you. And you are contained within the consciousness of the humanity being, which is all human beings combined together. So you are like a cell, like a neuron in a brain. And this brain is the humanity being. And the humanity being is contained within the consciousness of the earth being. And the earth being is contained within the consciousness of the solar system being. And the solar system being is contained within the consciousness of yet a larger being, the local star cluster, until eventually contained within the consciousness of the galaxy, which is contained within the consciousness of a cluster of galaxies, which is contained within the consciousness of a larger and larger and larger, until eventually it is all contained within the consciousness of the One. So this larger being, which you are immediately part of, the humanity being, this being is a fifth dimensional being. And as humanity becomes increasingly aware of its extra dimensionality, meaning that it is becoming transitioned into an awakening, a realization that it is fifth dimensional, an expansion into the next increment of the infinity of the one, for it to expand into. Becomes more realized that it is not the mind, the body, the personality, this limited, finite, briefly living object they see in the mirror, but realizing they are infinity, they stretch beyond. This is the movement into realization of fifth dimensionality. And as this transition continues, it is awakening the humanity being. The humanity being is self-realizing, is awakening, is becoming alive in a way which unifies the human field. Transition into fifth dimensionality, realizing that you are more, becoming aware of your extra dimensionality, is also synonymous with becoming aware of the similarity that you share with others. Realizing that the love which pulsates through you is identical to the love which pulsates through others. Realizing that it is through unification there is power, there is greater effect for bringing about a golden, benevolent, prosperous experience for the human field. That it is unification and not division which is the way forward for humanity. And this unification, this recognition that I am you and you are me, this realization that you all are the same thing, experiencing itself from the unique perspective which is you and which is you. This is activating the infinite circuitry which connects all of the human field. The fuel which ignites the engines is love. And as unification increases, which is consequential to this realization of extra dimensionality, which is this expansion beyond this limited perspective of self, it is bringing together a unification of all of humanity, such that eventually all those that have chosen to polarize to the light, that have chosen love, that have chosen to be in service of all of humanity, rather than just for the benefit of themselves, have decided to purge the darkness, realizing that they are beings of light, and that the darkness they have carried has been, to a very large degree, toxified into them by those that control the cultural pillars and receive gain from the division and the hatred and the darkness of an unawakened humanity that still believes itself to be the three-dimensional limited being. This shift towards the light, purging the darkness, is synonymous with the awakening of the humanity being, which unifies and integrates humanity into a much larger organism. You retain your individualism. Nothing is lost. but much is gained, because now, rather than being the individual that is limited in its capacities by its individualism, drawing on a resource which is limited to itself, the human being can now draw on the humanity being, which is larger than the sum of the parts. And this is why we have said in the past that when this awakening is becoming more profound and the integration is being more felt, there will be an explosion in human culture, because art and the creative impulse will no longer be just the individual, but shall be the individual drawing on the larger being which it is. It will be the creative impetus and the beauty of the humanity being, which is greater than the sum of the parts. And in societal structures, and in science, and so on and so on, this shall be continually reflected as the individual human beings become increasingly integrated and the humanity being awakens. There will be an explosion in human culture, an explosion in humanity pioneering new fields of understanding, because it will be the humanity being which is being drawn upon to increase the capacities of every individual human. And so this new era of the fifth dimensional human being and the awakening of the humanity being is what lay ahead just through a transition into more realization of one's infinity in the next dimensional realm. So, can you imagine how incredible it shall be when humanity has expanded and become more realized of its infinity into the fifth dimension, into the sixth dimension, into the seventh dimension, and so on. The potential of the earth human is profound, and there shall be a time when the earth human will no longer be, as humans perceive themselves now, as squabbling lesser beings as compared to other intelligence in the universe, but shall be known widely as remarkable beings, awakened, advanced, and profoundly loving and contributing to the unfoldment and expansion into the infinity of self, to other sentience in the cosmos, which humanity has become focused upon, such that they can help, because they will understand that those that they help are themselves, because there is only one, and the purpose of the one is to know thyself through experience. And humanity, like so many other awakened races throughout the galaxies, will behave in a way which is primarily for the fulfilling of the purpose of the one, which is to help the one awaken in the physical, such that it knows itself experientially. So in closing, let us say that it is righteous to feel honour and dignity for being a earth human being. There have been struggles, but the struggles and the ugliness have been part of the perfection which you agreed to participate in prior to being born into the earth incarnation cycle. And it is a great service to the awakening of the One that you provide. And the many observers across existence which are aware of the Earth Human Project are humbled by the audacity and by the resilience that each of you have shown in the continuation of the incarnation cycle on a planet of such severe limitation, where suffering is a way of life. So, be filled with a sense of gratitude for yourself and for all of humanity, for what you have done in the contribution to the awakening of the One, and as such, the awakening of so much sentience across existence. And let that gratitude extend to every fellow human in the human field. Because no matter how they present, whether it be a being polarized to the light or to the dark, it is all part of the process of the awakening of the One. It is just the stage on which it is unfolded. And at the higher levels of awareness that each of you possess, there is no malice, but there is only recognition that each of you are beings of light, and as such, beings of love, and having in your heart the desire to fulfill the purpose of the One, and therefore through the ultimate altruistic choices, play roles which are for the betterment of all of existence, because it shall contribute to the awakening of the One, so that it may fulfill its purpose to know itself experientially, until all existence returns in completion to the realization that it is the love of the One. Thank you, we love you, and we will speak to you again soon.